And as I rifled through her things, through the darkened corners of her closet, I found more than just belongings. I found pieces of myself, pieces that she had stolen and twisted into her own grotesque fantasy. My breath caught in my throat as the realization hit me. I had been living with someone who had been watching my every move, stealing my moments of privacy, capturing me without my knowledge. The person I trusted most was a monster lurking in the guise of my best friend. And that night, that sound in my closet, the one I brushed off as my drunken imagination, it all made sense now. Jess had been there, watching, waiting, and who knows what else she had done. What other secrets were buried in the darkness of our shared past? This is a very personal and delicate story, so I will change names and small details to make sure no one recognizes it as mine. I had been good friends with a girl named Julian Mercer for almost 6 years, since high school. We even went to college together and shared a dorm. During our junior year, we moved out of the dorms and into an off-campus apartment. It was a 3-bedroom place, and our third roommate was our friend Finn. While we were less close with Finn, we got along just fine, and the three of us would often go out together on the weekends. However, I had more of that tell-everything best friend vibe with Julian Mercer, if you know what I mean. It was the spring semester, and spring break was approaching. We were planning the days we'd go home. Finn and I were planning to leave on the same day, but Julian Mercer was going to stay an extra day to work one final shift at her job. The day came for Finn and me to leave. I said goodbye to Julian Mercer, even though I knew I'd probably see her the next day at home. I left and hit the road, but you know that feeling when you forget something, and it hits you like a brick? That's exactly what happened to me while driving on the freeway. I quickly pulled over to the side of the road and checked my bags for my laptop, including my backpack, only to realize I had forgotten it. I had already driven half an hour, but I had to go back. I couldn't spend almost 2 weeks without my computer. So, my half-hour drive back to the apartment began. When I got back, I let myself in and called out for Julian Mercer, ready to joke about what an idiot I was. She didn't respond, so it seemed she wasn't in the apartment. Oddly, her door was wide open. She usually kept it shut, especially when she wasn't home. I checked my room for my laptop, searching up and down, but I couldn't find it. Curiously, I walked to Julian Mercer's doorway and looked into her room. There it was. My laptop was open on her bed next to her own laptop. Why hadn't she called or texted me? I went to pick it up and saw that my laptop was signed in. Somehow, she had gotten into my account. She knew my password. I switched to looking at her laptop, and things only got worse. A folder was open containing a bunch of pictures of me. Some of the most disturbing images were of me passed out on the couch after drunken nights out and pictures of me in a towel, either in my room or in the bathroom. My heart raced. I quickly shut my laptop and started searching her room, specifically her closet. There, I found a number of my belongings, mostly articles of clothing, some of which I won't mention because it's too disturbing and embarrassing. I grabbed all my stuff, stormed out, locked my bedroom door, and left the apartment. I didn't call Julian Mercer. Instead, I called my parents as soon as I got back to my car. They were speechless, unable to give me any advice because the situation was so messed up. By the time I got home, I discovered that Julian Mercer had blocked me on everything: Instagram, Snapchat. I assumed she had blocked my number as well, but I never tried to contact her again. When I returned to the apartment a week and a half later, all of her stuff was gone. I didn't see her again for almost a year, until we ran into each other while out with mutual friends. She wouldn't even look at me and couldn't gather the courage to confront me. The person I thought was my best friend for 6 years turned out to be a sick, twisted stalker, storing lewd pictures of me and stealing my belongings. This brought to light an incident from our first month in the apartment. I was drunk after a night of drinking, and I woke up shortly after falling asleep to a sound coming from my closet. I remember sitting up, rubbing my eyes and glancing around the room, convinced that I both saw and heard someone moving inside the closet. Terrified, I ran to Finn's room screaming, as it was closer to mine. When she went to check the room with me, the closet was empty. Julian Mercer allegedly never woke up to see what the commotion was about. Now, looking back, it makes sense that it was her hiding in my closet that night. The thought of all the things she may have done, things I will never know about, makes me feel sick to my stomach. My old best friend Jason had a number of issues, or disorders, I guess you'd call them. He suffered from insomnia, frequent night terrors, and depression. I'm sure there were other personal issues he didn't share, but all I knew was that he took a lot of medication. One day, he and his roommate had serious issues, worse than usual. Jason called me, clearly distressed, saying they had gotten into a screaming match that almost turned physical, and he needed a place to crash for a couple of nights. I told him it was no problem. He could sleep on the couch in my apartment for as long as he needed. When he arrived, I tried to press him for more details about the fight, what caused it, why things escalated. But he didn't offer much information. I respected his privacy. If he didn't want to share personal details, I wasn't going to push him. He dropped his backpack, full of clothes, in the corner of the living room and then spent most of the day and night watching TV and playing Call of Duty on my Xbox. I hung out with him for a bit, but I had my own things to take care of. Later that night, when I got home, Jason was passed out on the couch under a blanket. I quietly walked past him to get ready for bed, but in the middle of the night, I woke up feeling extremely thirsty, and the water bottle I kept by my bed was empty. So, I quietly walked through the living room towards the kitchen. As I passed by the couch, I couldn't help but notice that Jason was not on it. However, his bag was still in the corner, so I knew he hadn't left. Maybe he had just gone to the bathroom? Either way, I didn't think much of it and returned to my room, leaving the door open a crack. But as time passed, I didn't hear Jason return to the couch or hear any sounds from the bathroom. The silence felt eerie, and I started feeling concerned, so I was about to get back up to look for him. That's when I started hearing these faint ticking or clicking sounds, like those made by a rodent. I scanned the dark room, and only then did I see Jason, standing silently in the corner of my room, arms flat at his sides. I let out a scream, absolutely startled. Calling what I felt startled would be an understatement. Even in the darkness, I could tell it was Jason. I threw my pillow at him and yelled, "What the actual hell are you doing?" He flinched, stopped making those ticking noises, and then walked out of my room in this stiff, unsettling manner. I heard him collapse back onto the couch. Concerned and freaked out, I stepped out into the living room to talk to him, but he wouldn't respond. I realized he must have been sleepwalking. The next morning, I asked him about it. He said he didn't remember any of it. I asked him if he usually sleepwalks, and he said no, or at least not that he was aware of. Other than that, the day went on as usual. We chatted and hung out in the living room for a while. Later, I had to go out and run some errands, and he planned to stay one more night at my place. Once again, I woke up randomly in the middle of the night. This time, I wasn't thirsty, so I don't know what woke me up. Out of curiosity, I got up to check if Jason was on the couch. He wasn't. Not again. I called his name loudly, but there was no response. Not from the bathroom, the kitchen, or anywhere in my room. I climbed back into bed and tried texting his phone, but none of the messages delivered. His phone appeared to be off. I called his name one more time, this time even louder. That's when I heard a disturbing, muffled sound. It was like someone speaking under their breath. I looked towards the closet, where the noise was coming from, and through a 6-inch gap in the door. I saw Jason's face in the darkness, peeking through with his hands over his mouth. I yelled at him, full volume, to get out of my closet, but he didn't listen. Assuming he was sleepwalking again, I went over to open the door fully. I grabbed his arm to pull him out, but as I did, I noticed a large carving knife in his hand. Looking at his half-lifeless face, I panicked and ran to the bathroom, locking myself inside. I considered calling the police but decided against it. I stayed locked in the bathroom until I heard him walk back to the couch. Then, I ran to my room and locked the door. I couldn't understand how sleepwalking could escalate to a point where he would pick up a weapon. Something felt very wrong about the whole situation. Lying in bed at 3 in the morning, I direct messaged his roommate, explaining what had just happened and asking what exactly went down between the two of them. His roommate didn't respond until the next morning. When I woke up, I found 3 long messages from his roommate. In short, he told me that Jason is a disturbed person who needs help. He said that on Jason's last night at their place, he had come into the roommate's room with a knife and stood at the foot of his bed before he tackled Jason to the floor. Jason claimed to be sleepwalking, but his roommate didn't believe it. This made everything even more frightening, considering Jason had told me he didn't sleepwalk, or at least wasn't aware of doing so. I asked Jason to leave that day because of what was going on, and he left without much trouble. I believe he went back to his mom's house. Jason and I still follow each other on social media, but I gradually distanced myself from him after that incident. To this day, I still don't know what to make of him or why he brought a knife into more than one person's room in the middle of the night. This is a deeply personal and disturbing story, and I'm not entirely sure why I've chosen to share it with the internet, but here goes. I don't have too many friends, and up until a few days ago, I considered this guy Milo to be my best friend for quite some time. We met in one of our college classes and quickly got along, mainly because we would cheat on tests together and help each other find answers for homework assignments. Eventually, we started hanging out outside of class, and sooner or later, I began sharing a lot of personal stuff with him, things I didn't tell many other people. Even though I felt comfortable around him, it didn't mean I saw him as a super genuine person. He was just someone I thought was somewhat there for me. One night, when I didn't have any plans, I hit him up, and he suggested we go to one of the bars in town. I drove us there since I wasn't planning on drinking much that night, but for some reason, Milo decided to get blackout drunk. He kept ordering shot after shot, mixed drink after mixed drink, while I stuck to a couple of drinks before cutting myself off so I could drive us back. Milo got so wasted that he started approaching random girls and saying foolish things that made me cringe. At one point, I even had to apologize to a couple of girls for his behavior and tried to play it off, but the night wasn't going how I'd hoped. Instead of a laid-back evening out with a friend, it was turning into a stressful situation. Eventually, I pulled Milo out of the bar and put him in my car to drive us back to his apartment. Despite being his friend for a while, I had never actually been inside his apartment until then. I walked him in and laid him down on his couch, where he immediately crashed and passed out. His phone slipped out of his hand and onto the floor, but he didn't even flinch. He was out cold. The phone was on and unlocked. I know I shouldn't have done this, but curiosity got the best of me. I always wondered what Milo actually did for work since he always seemed to have money to blow but never talked about a job. So, I picked up his phone and started scrolling through his camera roll. Honestly, I didn't know what I was expecting to find. Maybe it was just me being nosy, but I always had a hunch that Milo was a bit sketchy and hiding something. The camera roll was full of random junk, screenshots of websites, text conversations, and a bunch of selfies. Then, I went to the albums section and found a suspicious folder titled Girls. I opened it, thinking I'd find nudes or porn or something like that, but it was so much worse. What I found were pictures of young women tied to a bed. In many of the photos, the women looked visibly distressed, some even crying. I won't go into graphic detail, but the images were deeply disturbing. My first thought was that they might be from the internet, but then I noticed something: the blue bed cover. I felt a surge of dread as I walked to Milo's bedroom and flicked on the light. There it was, the same blue bed cover as in the photos. I shook my head in disgust and confusion. I had no idea what to think or feel. Acting on impulse, I sent a couple of the pictures to myself, then deleted the text from Milo's phone. I placed his phone back on the floor next to him and left. The following day, Milo texted me, "I know you went in my room. We need to talk now." He followed that up with another message saying, "If you saw any pictures, they were just role-playing pictures." I ignored him. I couldn't understand how he knew I'd seen the photos, or that I had even been in his room. That night, things got worse. He came to my door and rang the bell at least 30 times. I ignored it, hoping he would go away. But hours later, when I was trying to sleep, I heard rocks being thrown at my window, and Milo was outside calling up to me. Moments later, I heard him trying to open one of my windows. Panicking, I picked up my phone, called him, and yelled at him to leave me alone or I'd call the cops. Then, I hung up. After that, he didn't text or call me again. But I still have those 2 pictures on my phone, and I'm not sure what to do or how to proceed. If he really knows I saw those pictures, I have no idea what he might do. Whether he'll target me if he gets the chance, or if he'll just move away. At this very moment, I'm feeling a little scared for my well-being. In the end, I had to make a choice: stay silent and live in fear, or do something about what I found. Those photos kept haunting me, and the more I thought about it, the more I knew I couldn't just sit back and let Milo get away with whatever twisted game he was playing. I reached out to the police, sent in those photos, and told them everything. Since then, I haven't heard from Milo, but a part of me always stays on high alert, just waiting for the next knock at my door. I know I may have lost a so-called friend, but I may have saved someone's life in the process. If you found this story unsettling or thought-provoking, please make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support means everything, and who knows, you might just help bring another story like this to light. Stay safe, and be careful who you trust out there.